All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, there's a saying that what's known does not need to be stated. It's very clear that Mr. Jaylen Brown has never heard that slogan. Either that or he doesn't care. And sometimes, when it's already been prognosticated or predicted that you should be able to achieve to a certain level, and then you go out of your way to add on to that prognostication by making your own assertions, all you do is put yourself in the predicament where now there's a target on your back. And for the Boston Celtics, a team that has not won a championship in the last 10 years with a squad of young players, I just don't think that it's quite necessary to put that big of a target on your back quite yet. It's something that Jaylen Brown is going to have to learn, and I believe that he's going to have to learn it the hard way. But anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
So, a little less than a month after saying that he wishes LeBron James stayed in the East, Jaylen Brown is saying on CJ McCollum's Pull-Up podcast that there is no doubt that the Celtics are going to the finals this.
Let me say this very quickly. I do believe that the Celtics are going to get to the NBA Finals. But would it surprise me if Kawhi Leonard and the Toronto Raptors were to defeat the Boston Celtics in the playoffs? No, it would not. No, it would not.
Season. Westgate Las Vegas Superbook has the Celtics as a heavy favorite to win the East at 5-6, followed by the 76ers, Raptors, Bucks, and Pacers. Stephen A.
Once again, I think that there are going to be some chemistry issues on the Boston Celtics this season. Sometimes the team has a little bit too much talent. When you just look at the guard position, when I say the guard position, I mean both the quote-unquote point guard and the shooting guard. You have Kyrie Irving, you have Jaylen Brown, you have Gordon Hayward, you have Marcus Smart, you have Terry Rozier. Now, of course, Gordon Hayward is going to be predominantly playing the three, but it wouldn't surprise me if at certain points in the game, especially late in the fourth quarter, if they have him playing the four position. That team is going to be dealing with a glut of talent. Now, certain people will say that's a good problem to have. Yes, it is a good problem to have as long as everyone knows how to play together. And we're not quite going to know how well they're going to play together probably until about the 30-game mark in the regular season, because Gordon Hayward is going to be looking to reassert himself. Please remember that he signed a very lucrative contract with the Boston Celtics, and he's going to be looking to show that he's right back to the old Gordon Hayward. He's going to want anywhere from 15 to 20 shots per game, because he's going to be trying to average anywhere from 23 to 25 points per game, as will Kyrie. Terry Rozier is going to be looking to prove to both the Boston Celtics and other NBA franchises that he is a starting point guard in the league. Because after this season, they're not going to be able to keep both Terry Rozier and Kyrie.
You got any issue with what Brown had to say?
A little bit. First of all, I'm a huge fan of his. He can ball. I don't blame him for saying what he said, because obviously you've got a lot of people who believe that the Boston Celtics were going to the NBA Finals this upcoming season, even if LeBron had ended up staying in the Eastern Conference, particularly with the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's how much people believed in the Boston Celtics. What I would remind folks, however...
And I agree with that. I think that the Boston Celtics would have been the favorites to get to the NBA Finals even had LeBron James stayed with the Cleveland Cavaliers. LeBron's playoff season truly ended in a perfect way. He was able to once again prove to his sycophants, to his super fans, that he can lead a team all the way to the finals with quote-unquote little to no help. He didn't have to run into Kyrie Irving, who obviously would have been able to put the Boston Celtics over the top in a 7-game series against LeBron James. We have to assume that because even without Kyrie, they went to 7 games. So with a superlative talent like a Kyrie Irving, we would have to have expected that the Celtics would have beaten the Cleveland Cavaliers in 5 or 6 games.
That Toronto gave them a run for their money. They lost 2 of the 3 times they faced Boston, if I remember correctly. One of those times, Boston lost to them by 20. The other time, Boston beat them by 1 at home in the midst of a 16-game winning streak earlier in the season. People keep forgetting that as much as we respect and appreciate DeMar DeRozan and what he brings to the table, he is no Kawhi Leonard.
Absolutely not. Kawhi Leonard is about 2, maybe even 3 levels above DeMar DeRozan. Just to give DeMar the benefit of the doubt and respect for what he's been able to accomplish in the NBA for the past 4 or 5 seasons, I will say that Kawhi is about 2 levels above DeMar DeRozan. But still, those 2 levels are quite discernible. This is assuming that Kawhi is able to reassume the level and status that he had before the injury with the San Antonio Spurs. just assuming that Kawhi Leonard will be the same player that he was in the 2016-2017 season, he's going to be at the very worst the third best player in the National Basketball Association, and he's going to be able to take that Toronto Raptors team to another level depending on how well they use him.
Kawhi Leonard is now a member of the Toronto Raptors. Now, this is the same Toronto Raptors team without Kawhi Leonard, but with DeMar DeRozan, that was the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference, having won 59 games. Now you're talking about replacing DeRozan with Kawhi Leonard and keeping the rest of the team intact. I would say to y'all, excuse me, to Jaylen Brown included, excuse me, it's not like the Toronto Raptors got worse. A matter of fact, one could argue they got significantly better, not just because of the arrival of Kawhi Leonard, but because of the absence of LeBron James.
Agreed and agreed.
Is why DeMar DeRozan was so sick to his stomach, because he loved being in the city of Toronto, and what he was saying is the one person that we kept losing to was the greatest player in the world. Now that he's out west, that leaves us.
Right, I agree with you on that as well, brother, but we have to remember something. For all intents and purposes, DeMar DeRozan proverbially quit on his team last year in the playoffs, and certain people may disagree with me when I make this statement. Once you come out to the public and you're supposed to be the alpha male on your team, and you state that you had psychological issues, that you're dealing with a depression problem, that's a very serious issue that has to be handled. But that also means that you can never be an alpha in a professional sports league. I'm sorry, bottom line of it. You can never be an alpha on a professional sports team if you're dealing with depression issues, and you're willing to admit that publicly, because that's showing signs of susceptibility, of vulnerability to other prominent players and other prominent teams all across the league, where they're able to understand even further that if we're able to get that team down, we know that DeMar DeRozan is going to start to doubt himself. He's going to give up. So that was a strategic error on DeMar DeRozan's part. It's different for Kevin Love to say that because he's a supplementary piece. But you're DeMar DeRozan. You're supposed to be the alpha. You're the leader. You cannot show any signs of weakness. So here's what we know about Kawhi Leonard. We know that he was tired of dealing with San Antonio, but we're not quite sure what he's made of as an alpha, as a leader on a team. And certain people might say, what are you talking about? He was the alpha on San Antonio. Well, Greg Popovich is perceived as the alpha on San Antonio. I'm not saying that Kawhi Leonard was definitely not, but his tenure in Toronto will give us a chance to see how much of an alpha he really is. Either way, DeMar DeRozan had to go. I understand what Stephen A. is saying about DeMar's assertions that, well, now that LeBron is gone, this is our chance to get to the finals. That team had pretty much reached its maximum level of success. If you're Masai Ujiri, you're not just paying attention to LeBron James. You're also paying attention to the Boston Celtics. And you're saying we have to get faster, we have to get stronger, we have to get better defensively, we have to get stronger mentally as well. Remember, Kyle Lowry also had a mental breakdown a couple of playoffs ago where he had to go to the locker room and quote-unquote decompress in the playoffs. So to be quite honest with you, Kyle Lowry's lucky that he was not traded as well.
Probably Boston. So why move me? Think about that.
I just thought about it, Steve, and I don't think that it's that big a deal. I think that it was a great move to move DeMar DeRozan. I also had no problem with them relieving the coach of his duties, because you have certain coaches that are just there to get you to a certain level, but are not championship level coaches. And what the Golden State coaching move showed the NBA is that they cannot be scared to go from good to great, especially when you understand that this coach is not meant to take you to that highest level.
I have no problem with what Jaylen Brown said. Jaylen Brown is not only a fantastic and improving young player, he's super smart, a chess nerd. He's a good teammate. I like the fact that he's cocky like that. If in fact
I think that cockiness is built for the short term, though. After a while, Jaylen Brown is going to want a little bit more of the spotlight. And I think that some of the more quote-unquote controversial or quote-unquote arrogant or quote-unquote inflammatory statements that he's making are an attempt by him to assert himself as a member of the Boston Celtics. He knows that he's not going to be a primary ball handler. That's going to be Kyrie. He knows that most likely he's not even going to be a second option. That's going to be Jason Tatum or Gordon Hayward. So he's going to have to get in where he fits in. So it would not surprise me if after this season, If the Boston Celtics decide to maintain their glut of talent, Jaylen Brown demands a trade of some sort.
Celtics do get out of these, partly it will be because of that attitude. And when you look at the Celtics starting five this year, let's leave, Rozier and these guys out of it for a second. We're very good. Just the starting five. Kyrie, Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward, Jason Tatum, and Al Horford. Oh,
that's an assumption on your part. That's an assumption on your part that that's going to be the starting lineup. Do we really think that Gordon Hayward is going to be able to be a starting four in the NBA? Or are they going to maintain Marcus Morris as their starting four? That's why I state that there may be issues with the continuity, with the chemistry on that team.
That team is ridiculous. Now, Stephen A., to your point, yes, Toronto has a legit chance. Yes, Philadelphia has a legit chance. Let's see what Markelle Fultz turns into, because Embiid and Simmons are the real deal. By the way, Zaire Smith, and they have young talent that are question marks, but if they pan out, oh my God, they have good role players who can play, and they have two superstars.
To be quite frank with you, the Philadelphia 76ers are going to go as far as Ben Simmons' jump shot. And certain people may be listening and saying, well, that means that you don't think that they're going to go very far at all. Once again, the Philadelphia 76ers are going to go as far as Ben Simmons' jump shot. Because when they start facing elite level talent, even in just the Eastern Conference, Toronto and Boston, if he cannot make a wide open jump shot, if he cannot be counted on to make his free throws, they're not going to beat those teams. I don't care how much shit Joel Embiid talks.
Or guys who are becoming superstars. In Philly. In Toronto, the problem was their best player, DeMar DeRozan, wasn't good enough to be the best player on a championship team. Maybe not even
Ding.
Finals team, although he's very good. Kawhi Leonard's good enough to be the best player on a championship team. By the way, they also got Danny Green. So Toronto is a legit contender. Philadelphia could be a legit contender. Boston should be the slight favorites, I believe, over Toronto still, even though the best...
I would agree with that, but once again, I think that may be a pick'em series by the time we get there.
...player on either team is on Toronto in Kawhi Leonard. Nevertheless, even the fact that they're the slight favorites and they could possibly lose doesn't mean I have a problem with what their young and emerging star has to say. He is cocky.
Let me say this very quickly. Yes, I believe that the best player, if the Toronto Raptors were to play the Boston Celtics, the best player overall in that series would be Kawhi Leonard. But one could make the case that the next 5 best players would be on the Boston Celtics. Because I'm not a big fan of Kyle Lowry at all. I think that he's very overrated. I think that he's an exemplary backup point guard on a championship level team. But I just don't think that he's a starter on a true championship contender. Now, people will say, how could you say that? He's been leading them to 50-plus wins every season, getting to the second round every season in the NBA playoffs. To me, when I think championship-level point guard, I think Chris Paul, even though he's never even got to the championship. I think Steph Curry, of course. I think Kyrie Irving. Those are championship-level point guards. These are guys that you can count on in big moments to be exemplary. And certain people may say, well, Steph Curry has not been that great in the finals. I disagree. I think that Steph Curry is a victim of his own expectations and of the great expectations that other people have for him. I think he's been very good to great in the finals. It's just that he has not been able to lead a team singularly over LeBron James when he was injured and Draymond the Donkey Green decided he was going to kick LeBron James or strike LeBron James in the nutsack, pardon me.
Good for him.
Stephen A., let me ask you this, because I said Vegas has the Celtics as heavy favorites, Max said slight favorites. If you were a betting man and had to pick right now, would you pick the Celtics out of these?
You have to go with Boston as the favorites, but you have to understand the legitimate bona fide threat that Toronto is. Toronto was the #1 seed last year. They've got Kawhi Leonard now. You also have to understand that there's still there are still issues and questions about Kawhi Leonard and those knees of his. Gordon Hayward is coming back from a nasty knee injury. We know that.
Well, first off, Stephen A., the question with Kawhi Leonard would be his quad, not his knees, unless he has a carryover knee injury that I'm not quite aware of. Gordon Hayward did not have a knee injury. He had an ankle break.
Is loaded with talent. The statement by Jaylen Brown, I don't have a problem with it. The brother's special. He's a special talent. But here's the flip side.
I think that he has special potential. Jaylen Brown is a player that we see, according to the measurables, probably has a 42, 43-inch vertical, extremely explosive, great first step, high fast twitch muscle fiber factor, seems to be very intelligent, getting exponentially better every season. But we've seen players come through the NBA like that basically every generation. Is he going to be able to maximize his potential? And will he be able to do that on the Boston Celtics? Those are some things to watch.
There was going to be immense pressure on Boston to begin with now that LeBron had left the conference. Now there's going to be immense pressure on the Boston Celtics because of his words. They got to back it up. And anything less than a trip to the NBA Finals is now officially going to be deemed a failed season because of the talent that Boston has combined with Jaylen Brown's words. And that's fine because I think that he'll be there to back it up. But he's going to have to.
I think the biggest concern for Boston more so is Kyrie and Gordon Hayward being back healthy and now this whole team meshing together and how they're going to...
I agree with you, Molly Karam. More in regards to how that team is going to mesh together than Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward coming back. I think that they're just going to do what they do. They've been playing basketball on a high level in the NBA now for about 4 or 5 years, to both of them. How are they going to mesh with the other Celtics that were able to achieve a certain level of success without them down the stretch of last year's regular season into the playoffs? And beyond that, the early part of training camp and the NBA preseason is going to be Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward trying to reassert the hierarchy. That's very, very important, especially on championship level teams. What is the hierarchy in regards to who's considered the alpha, second in command, third in command, so on and so forth? And Kyrie Irving is going to have to spend a major part of the NBA preseason busting Terry Rozier's ass in training camp and in practice. Gordon Hayward is going to have to go back and forth with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum to show them that I'm going to get the bulk of the minutes. Can he do that coming off of that ankle injury? I mean, hell, could he have done that last year before the ankle injury? Because those two boys are coming.
Play, because it's a different deal than last
That's
season.
right.
If they're healthy, I'm not worried about it.
We haven't seen him,
that's
though.
right, Molly. The biggest concern is Kyrie's knee, particularly given his style of play. And Gordon Hayward coming back from the leg, I think that's going to be a little less problematic. But given the way Kyrie plays, the health is going to be the question. But nevertheless, even though Gordon Hayward hasn't played with him and Kyrie missed part of the year, the Celtics are a more cohesive group. They've been around each other. They practiced together. They played most of these guys together all of last year.
No, you can't say that, Stephen A. Smith, because their incumbent best player is also their newest acquisition, that being Mr. Kawhi Leonard.
Toronto is trying to integrate for the first time, not coming back off an injury, their best player.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I have no idea why Stephen A. Smith has that dumbfounded look on his face.
Player and focal point of the team is going to be Kawhi Leonard. They've never played together before. That gives the Celtics a huge advantage.
No, I disagree with that from this perspective, Max. Kawhi Leonard is a very, very efficient offensive player. His signature is his toughness and his defense, and the fact from open and tap, he accepts the toughest defensive assignment night in and night out. Even you have said that. Not to say he's not efficient offensively, but again, it's not that big of an adjustment. And the rest of the Toronto Raptors are accustomed to playing together. They've all been playing together.
Right, but Stephen A., the real question is whether or not the overall team continuity and the team talent that the Toronto Raptors have on the level of the Boston Celtics. That's why I state one can certainly make the case that after Kawhi Leonard, the next 4 or 5 best players all play on the Boston Celtics.
Teams, you could argue Boston and Toronto have to deal with cohesiveness and chemistry issues because things are changing. Guys, we got to go.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. We're going to see what happens with the Boston Celtics this season. I think that they're going to be a very interesting team to watch, not just because of how proficient they play, but for how well they get along in playing this season, because this is going to be a pivotal season for many players on that roster, especially with Kyrie Irving allegedly considering leaving the Boston Celtics to join the New York Knicks. When you look at it, Gordon Hayward, he's on the comeback trail. He's trying to reassert himself as a top-level player in the NBA, and he's also going to be trying to hold off Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Can Jason Tatum take that next step? Will Marcus Smart get frustrated? Because clearly a lot of his playing time is going to have to get cut down. I believe that he just re-signed with the Boston Celtics for somewhere around 14 or 15 million. But how much playing time is he going to get with how deep they are at the guard position? I think that that's certainly something to watch. But anyway, peace.